Okay, good morning, afternoon to everyone. Pleasure to be here. Myself and my colleague Mamadou, who's also with us. Um, so certainly there's been much discussion already, and I think we all agree on the importance of inclusion in community programs. So the question is, who is involved? I think there's also a question about who isn't involved, maybe who should be. Our work, and this presentation has to do with our work in Africa, in Senegal specifically, and where, as we know, across Africa, elders play an important role. And one notes that, unfortunately, many community programs do not explicitly involve elders and not specifically grandmothers. So before sharing with you our experience related to empowering grandmothers to catalyze change for girls, I want to just tell you briefly about our change through culture approach. I've had the opportunity to work for many years, many places in Africa, also in Asia and Latin America. And a longtime concern of mine has been the gap. Where did it go? The gap between community roles and realities and community programs, and the inadequate consideration given to culture. Certainly all programs, consciously or unconsciously, are transmitting cultural values. In many cases, I think those are Western values and not some of the very positive African values that others have been talking about related to more collective Ubuntu kind of values. So starting with our Change Through Culture approach, then tell you a bit about our Girls Holistic Development Program, why involve grandmothers in these programs, our community dialogue for consensus building approach to change, the results of the Girls Holistic Development Intergenerational and Grandmother Inclusive Program, and a few lessons learned. So starting back in 2005, Grandmother Project is an American and a Senegalese NGO, started in 2005. So we've been working on developing a change through culture approach since then, with 5 key pillars. That the first one being that the foundation for all programs should be cultural roles and values. Secondly, the recognition and involvement of elders, especially grandmothers, because we work on issues mainly related to women and children and families, women and children mainly, strengthening communication between generations, strengthening the role of formal and informal community leaders, and using communication and education methods based on dialogue for consensus building. The goal of our Change Through Culture strategy in Senegal is to strengthen the capacity of communities to promote the rights and well-being of children in general, and specifically girls. We have 2 interrelated intergenerational and grandmother inclusive programs. One, integrating positive cultural values into schools. Here you see a grandmother in the classroom, to make school programs more culturally relevant to children. And secondly, Girls Holistic Development, to address these 4 issues that constitute prevalent problems in the area where we're working in southern Senegal. Why involve grandmothers in programs to support girls? I think our onion model provides good insight into why it makes sense to involve grandmothers in programs for girls. And I would just comment, you've seen a lot of circles. The specificity or the uniqueness, I think, in our onion model that is left out of most of the concentric circle models that I've seen is the cultural element. And as the diagram suggests, it is the cultural system which overarches and surrounds all of the others. What does the onion model tell us about the situation of girls and strategies to change norms and practices related to girls? First, clearly from the onion, it's impossible for girls alone to change social norms. Social norms are embedded in culture. If we take child marriage as an example, there are cultural authorities that perpetuate social norms, and they are also the ones who have the power to change them. We sometimes forget that. Grandmothers influence family and community norms to a great extent related to girls' lives, and grandmothers have a central responsibility for the socialization of young girls, a reality which is, from what I can tell, almost completely ignored in the multiple programs focusing on girls across Africa. So the Girls Holistic Development Program, the key features are, it's an inclusive approach, including all categories of community members, 3 generations, not just 2, traditional religious leaders, teachers, community health workers. It strengthens communication between generations and between the sexes. It involves leaders of both sexes and all 3 generations. It's an assets-based approach, with having identified grandmothers as an invaluable cultural resource to address this issue and many others in communities, strengthens communication in particular between 3 generations of women, between girls, mothers, and grandmothers. And it uses adult education methods to catalyze dialogue and build empowerment for community-driven change. This diagram that we constructed illustrates, visually, it illustrates how we see this intergenerational, intergroup dialogue process for building consensus. I think most programs, they focus, target in a linear fashion on different segments, if you would, of the different community actors, and do not explicitly attempt to strengthen communication between these different groups of community actors. How do we do this? A series of intergenerational participatory activities, the foundation being intergenerational forums that last for 2 days, with the participation of, as listed above, 3 generations: religious, traditional leaders, teachers, community health workers. During those intergenerational forums, here you have some large group discussions, but often, in many cases, small group discussions between the elders, between the young men, between the girls here with a teacher, between mothers, between grandmothers, Days of praise of grandmothers. Unfortunately, many communities in Africa have absorbed ageist attitudes of the West, and the Day of Praise of Grandmothers is to increase community recognition of the important role of the grandmothers and begin the process of strengthening grandmothers' self-confidence as active community actors. Grandmother leadership training. Specifically, the grandmother leadership training we've done specifically on girls' holistic development, strengthening their knowledge of issues, challenges facing adolescent girls, and encouraging collective action among grandmothers to protect girls from being taken out of school, child marriage, FGM, etc. All women forums. Here you see at the conclusion, you have girls, mothers, grandmothers, and female teachers. 2 days, strengthening the communication between them on these key topics, issues, girls' concerns, grandmothers' concerns. And another, also during the all women forums, the fun times of traditional dances, songs, the 3 generations together, building connectedness. Under the tree sessions, mainly between grandmothers and girls, but also with mothers. And grandmother teacher workshops, so that grandmothers and teachers join hands in protecting and promoting girls. To summarize the results of these various activities, we have observed changes in the attitudes of family and community members towards girls' holistic development, a strengthened leadership role by grandmothers promoting girls' holistic development in families and communities, increased confidence empowerment of adolescent girls, and increased social cohesion and intergenerational communication, which have together contributed to changes in the social norms and practices that we have been working on. The results of the Girls Holistic Development Program were evaluated, an extensive quantitative and qualitative study by the Institute of Reproductive Health at Georgetown University. They concluded that the intergenerational and grandmother inclusive approach has contributed to bringing about positive changes in norms and practices related to the 4 priority issues related to girls, and also in communication, in strengthening communication between generations.
Judy, your time's just about up, so if you try and wind up pretty quickly. Thank you.
Just about done. The Girls Holistic Development Program has built on the role, experience, power, and commitment of grandmothers to girls' well-being. It's increased community's appreciation of grandmothers, increased grandmothers' knowledge, increased grandmothers' confidence to actively protect and promote girls' holistic development in families and communities. It strengthened relationship between grandmothers, girls, and mothers, and increased the support of grandmothers to girls. Increased support of grandmothers to girls has increased their self-confidence to participate in decision-making, families, and communities. It's just about to the end. The Girls Holistic, the IRH research concluded that the Girls Holistic Development Strategy created spaces for dialogue and consensus building between elders, adults, and adolescents, between men and women, to promote community-wide change in these social norms, and that the inclusive strategy has contributed to increased communication, understanding, and respect between genders and between age groups. A couple of lessons learned, the need for a systems approach. Maybe the last 3, grandmothers constitute an abundant and underutilized resource for girls, given their status within the community, their proximity, their experience, and their commitment to girls' well-being. And that grandmothers are open to change when an approach based on respect and dialogue is used with them. And lastly, that empowered grandmothers can play a key role in catalyzing change in social norms and practices in families and communities in favor of girls. Thank you.